Noor was a young man who lived in a fantasy world. He was pretty strong for his age and very well liked by everyone in the town he lived in. He worked a manual labor job, and his boss was impressed by his work and never said a word against him, as he was the best worker he had ever seen. One such day, after taking his daily wage, he was about to head back when he suddenly heard the voice of a woman screaming for help coming from a nearby cave. He immediately rushed over, even after his boss told him not to, as it could be dangerous. He ignored everyone's warning and entered the cave, only to see a girl wrapped in magical barbed wire, while an adventurer's party faced off against a giant demonic bull.
Oh my God!
Ever since he was a child, he had always taken care of his mother and the household because his father never came back with the milk. But he took it as a champ and started taking care of the house. His mom was sickly and mostly bedridden, so he made hot soup for her to drink while covered in soot, and told her that he was going out to hunt some rabbits so she could have some protein for dinner.
So good and tasty?
His mother cleaned his face while apologizing for not being able to give him anything in life, but Noor put on a brave face and told her he didn't need anything anyway. Later that night, he prepared a hearty rabbit stew for his mom, but when he came back to feed her, she had already passed away from this world. Let's take 2 seconds of prayer for her, and meanwhile doing that, you should subscribe to my channel. Now, poor Noor had no one to call family in this world. He buried his mother outside the house but decided that he couldn't be weak and cry. He started living alone, tending to the garden, catching game, and taking care of the farm animals. He studied inside his room after thoroughly cleaning it. He trained his body by catching wild fish, carrying heavy loads on the mountains, and eating lots of protein every day. One night, due to loneliness, he climbed on top of a chair and took out an old dusty storybook and started reading it. This took him way back as he remembered the time when his family was whole, and his father would tell him tales about mighty adventurers who fought colossal dragons, learned magic from wizards, lifted curses in the haunted forest, and fought against an army of elves. These stories always fascinated him, as his father would tell him that the duty of an adventurer is to protect weak people and make sure they are never hurt. This gave him inspiration to do something with his life. And the next day, after tending to the animals, he got ready to leave his home and move towards the city to try and be an adventurer. He stayed in the forest at night with a campfire, and by the next morning, he arrived at the beautiful city of his kingdom. He entered the giant main gate and was completely blown away to see the number of people roaming around the markets, selling their goods, and people buying swords and fruits at the same place. While walking, he noticed a man with a sword and decided to follow him, which led him to the Adventurers Guild. He entered the establishment to find a big, burly man at the reception instead of a thick, furry girl. Disappointed, he told the man that he was there to be an adventurer, but the man brushed him off by saying that this was no place for kids, and he should think about his parents. Noor replied that his parents were dead, which caught the fatty's attention.
It was at this moment he knew. He f***ed up.
And he told him to drop by the training school first. Noor seemed confused, but the fatty told him that to join a guild, he needed to pick a school, go through basic training, pick his class and skills, and only after graduating could he become an adventurer. Noor was happy for the information, and excitedly headed over to a school with the aim to become the strongest swordsman. He enrolled and started training in the way of the sword, but even after several weeks, while every other student started awakening their magical potential, Noor still had no magical abilities. He kept practicing, and several months passed by, after which the instructor told him that he didn't have the talent and was wasting his time there. He told him to join a different school, as he was definitely not fit to be a swordsman. Noor didn't give up and found the school and decided to train as a warrior. He started training under a big, fat redhead. But even after going through intense training for several months, the redhead told him that he didn't have the talent for it, as all he had learned was how to parry attacks. He then went through several different schools, first as a hunter, but he got kicked out. After that, he tried to become a thief but got rejected as he had no talent for it. He then went to become a magician, but failed in that too. Finally, he decided to become a healer but failed and returned back disappointed. The fatty was shocked to learn that even after spending months at every school, he hadn't learned a single thing, and told him that, unfortunately, there was nothing he could do to become an adventurer. Disappointed in himself, Noor left the city and returned back to his cottage in the woods. However, he decided that he was not going to admit defeat, and created his own training setup with a sword. He decided to perfect the one move that he had learned, which was to parry and deflect attacks aimed at him. He spent days perfecting it, day and night, and finally, after a year of rigorous training, he became strong enough to parry 10 attacks at once. He decided to keep training, and 3 years passed by, after which he managed to parry 100 swords at once but gained no new skills. He keeps training endlessly to the point where his sword breaks. 14 years pass by as he realizes that, in these past years, he has trained every single day and is now able to parry 1,000 swords at once without fail. Despite putting in this much hard work, he doesn't gain any new skills but still decides to head over to the Adventurers Guild once more. This time, he meets with a young girl who looks at his skill set, only to advise him to visit the training school. Noor tells her that he has already been through them, which surprises the girl as she tells him that he doesn't have any skills to make him an adventurer.
You serious?
Noor gets disheartened once again when the fatty comes out and barely recognizes him. They sit down to talk over some beer, when Noor tells him about his training for the past years. Fatty tells him that there are ranks in an adventurer from E to S, but even to become E rank, you need at least one skill, which Noor doesn't have. Noor gets sad, but Fatty tells him that not many people know, but there is another rank below E, which is F. There are some limitations for F-rank adventurers, as they can't take kill quests or work in the forests outside the city. They can only take odd manual labor jobs in the city, but no one would really want to do that. To his surprise, Noor immediately accepts and finally gets his adventurer's license. He starts doing odd jobs around the city, like carrying heavy loads, finding lost cats, and keeps training every single night. He also takes nursing jobs and takes care of old people by cooking for them. While doing all this, he keeps training and seems to be happy working as an adventurer who can actually help people. Finally, we come back to the present, where the giant bull walks towards the adventurers and smashes the leader with his axe, who flies into the wall. Noor quickly checks him, only to find out that he is dead. He looks back to see the other guys getting skewered by the bull as he kills every single person in the area effortlessly, before moving his eyes onto the white-haired girl.
Oh my God!
Noor's body immediately jumps into action as he throws a rock at him and diverts the attention before running away. The monster chases him with surprising quickness, and Noor realizes that he can't run away, so he turns around and parries the bull's attack. To his surprise, the parry is so strong that the bull gets blasted into the wall. It immediately recovers and jumps through the dust to attack Noor, but he is able to parry the attacks again and again. He realizes that if he misses a single parry, he is as good as dead. He tries to find an opening but realizes that he doesn't have a single offensive skill to actually land an attack. His sword starts chipping, but the demon turns towards the girl and rushes towards her. Noor immediately uses his feather step ability, which increases his speed to appear before the bull and deflects the attack once again at the cost of his own sword. He remembers his father telling him that an adventurer defends the weak even at the cost of his own life, so he stands his ground, even with a broken sword. And this time when the monster attacks, Noor parries with all his might, which deflects the axe so much that it bounces back and chops the head of the bull cleanly before getting stuck in the rocks. The girl is utterly shocked as blood splatters all around the area, but the magical barbed wire disappears from her body. He falls to the ground, looking at his sword, which shatters and realizes how close of a call it was. The girl immediately thanks him for saving her life and asks his name, but Noor replies that his name isn't worth remembering and walks back outside. He walks through the streets, thinking about how he almost got killed by a giant cow, and realizes that he needs to train even more if he is to truly become an adventurer who can protect people. After Noor is gone, the dungeon gets filled with the white-haired woman's guards, as she turns out to be Lynn Clay of a noble family. Her personal guard arrives and watches the dead minotaur being inspected by the scientists, while Clay's guards lay dead on the ground covered by a white cloth. She immediately apologizes for not being there for her protection, but she tells him not to worry about it as it wasn't her fault. A little while later, another man named Dar enters and asks whether she is fine, and about the details of what happened here. The news about the attack reaches her brother Rai, who is completely shocked to find out that his sister was attacked by such a monster. He asks Dar whether he has any idea what a minotaur was doing on the surface when it is supposed to stay in the innermost depths of the dungeons. Dar bows down and admits that this was definitely an assassination attempt. As they found out about the ring Lin recently bought from a merchant, he claims that the ring got tested by a magician, and he revealed that it had a monostone of 90% purity, which is extremely hard to find. That was the reason why the Minotaur attacked her group. Rai still seems unclear, as he doesn't understand why a minotaur would want a mana stone, but Dar reveals that he believes the mana stone was cursed by the neighboring enemy kingdom of Derry, which is known for practicing dark magic. Rai agrees with this assumption, as lately Derry's army has been harassing them on the outskirts, and now such a brazen attack on Lin without even trying to hide it proves that they want a war. Rai then asks Dar about the man who saved Lin's life, but Dar claims that they know nothing about the man apart from the fact that he killed the minotaur with his broadsword in a matter of minutes, but escaped quickly afterward without even telling his name to Lin. The next morning, Noor goes into the guild as if nothing happened when the fatty immediately walks up to him, asking if he is fine. Noor seems confused, so Fatty explains that last night a deadly monster emerged in the caves near his construction site, and that's why he was worried. Noor has no idea that Fatty is talking about the minotaur that he killed last night, as he thought it must be a low-level cow monster since he managed to defeat it. Fatty tells Noor that he is lucky that he left beforehand because even a former A-ranked adventurer like him couldn't have done anything against such a strong beast. Noor wipes the dirt from his face and wonders what kind of monster it could be that even an A-ranked adventurer is scared of it, and then thanks God that he only faced off against a giant cow. Noor asks what happened to the monster, and Fatty replies that some mystery man ended up killing the beast in a single blow, which really shocks Noor, as he wonders how strong that man must be to kill such a monster, not realizing that he is the man Fatty is talking about. Later, Fatty gives him his pay for the day, but tells him to get a real job as well, otherwise he won't be able to earn much. Before he could reply though, a hooded figure appears behind him and calls him out. Noor turns around, only to find the white-haired girl he saved yesterday, and asks how she found him. She apologizes for following him, but claims that she used her long-distance detection skill to find him. He asks whether she learned it from the thief schools, but she claims that she is from the magician branch but has equal skills in all the 6 branches. Lin notices that she is drawing way too much attention and asks Noor whether they can talk somewhere more private, but before he could reply, Fatty grabs him and asks what the hell he did. Noor replies that he didn't do anything wrong, while Lin deploys a soundproof barrier and asks him to come with her. They both exit the building and walk through the streets to a desolate area, where she tells him that she really wanted to thank him, as not only did he save her life, but he also saved the lives of a lot of citizens. Noor still doesn't know how strong he is, so he claims that she is so talented, and he must have ruined her plans by butting his head in between. She tells him that it's not true. In fact, if he didn't come to her aid, she would have probably died there. She then claims that she wants to reward him for his help, but Noor immediately replies that her gratitude is enough. Lin, however, is not so easily pushed away, and she tells him that she is a person of status here, and even her father would like to thank him personally. He again refuses, which shocks Lin, who has no idea why a man would refuse a reward from a noble. She asks whether there is anything troubling him, and even claims that her father will give him a lot of land if he wants it, but Noor keeps rejecting her offers. He tells her that he doesn't need anything from her, which makes her tear up as she feels obligated to repay him for his help. She tells him that she won't move from this place till he accepts her gratitude, which reminds him of the time when he did the same to one of the instructors of the healing school branch. He finally gives in, and agrees to meet with her father, but refuses to take any over-the-top rewards. This makes her happy enough, and she uses magic to conceal both herself and him as they walk through the city back to her mansion. When they finally reach her house, Noor is completely shocked, as he has never seen such a big and lavish place. They walk by the guards and enter inside, while Noor wonders whether this girl is a noble if she is so rich. On the way, they end up running into her personal guard, Eni, who looks at him suspiciously and asks who he is. Lin tells her that this is the man who saved her life, and she immediately softens up, claiming that she will take them to the Lord. They follow Eni through the gallery when Noor spots a guy wearing yellow armor waiting by the window, and he immediately jumps into action, spinning his lance before pointing it towards Noor and asking who the hell he is. Eni tells him to back off, as he is Lin's guest. But this Pikachu-looking asshat ends up making fun of Noor for looking poor. Eni introduces him as Gil, and asks him to accompany them into the room, as she still doesn't fully trust Noor. They wait outside the hall, as Lin's father, Clay, was talking to his son about the chances of war increasing, as they remember the last time they met with the King of Derry, who ended up insulting them and threatened to wage war against them if they didn't give them access to all the dungeons in their kingdom. Soon, the door opens, and they all enter the hall, while both Eni and Gil drop to one knee in front of their lord. But Noor has no clue who the man seated on the high seat is, so he simply walks ahead without a single care alongside Lin. She introduces him to her father, claiming that this is the man that saved her life. And immediately the Lord gets up from his seat and moves towards Noor, thanking him for saving the life of his girl. Noor tells him that he is not a noble and has never talked to nobles before, so he doesn't know how to properly behave. But the Lord doesn't seem to mind, as he laughs and shakes his hand before asking him to choose anything that he wants for a reward.
Ooh, I want some pizza!
Noor immediately declines, claiming that he neither wants land nor gold. The Lord seems confused, but tells him that if he wants, he can have half the treasure of the oldest dungeons in the world that fall in their kingdom. Rai advises against it, as the treasure is worth more than a small country's GDP, but to their surprise, Noor refuses it as well, claiming that he doesn't want any kind of gift from them. The Lord looks confused as to what sort of man would refuse such a gift. He then walks over to his seat and takes out the giant black sword behind it, which used to be his personal weapon during his adventuring days. Rai seems a bit worried, but his father tells him that it's fine, as the sword should be used in battlefields and not kept as a decoration. He hands it over to Noor, who grabs the handle and immediately realizes that the weapon is heavier than anything that he has ever used. Noor thinks that it is just a random second-hand sword, so he decides to accept it as a gift, as he wanted all of this to end quickly so he could go back to work. The Lord asks him to swing it once, and to his surprise, Noor simply uses one hand to swing the sword so strongly that it creates a wind blast around them. Noor looks at the Lord and tells him that it's a bit heavy, but he will manage, which makes Clay laugh, as he can't believe this man just swung a two-handed greatsword with a single hand. Clay asks whether he would like to train Lin a little bit, as it is getting very dangerous nowadays, which puts a smile on the girl's face. But Noor immediately declines, claiming that there is nothing he could teach her, and decides to leave. On the way through their gallery, he looks at the sword once again and realizes that it is the same size as the drainage ditch, which means that he can use it to scoop out dirt from the ditch much more efficiently. Before he could leave, though, he gets stopped by Gil, who puts a lance to his face, telling Noor that he wants to see whether he is worthy of that sword. Noor wonders whether he will ever be able to leave this mansion to get back to work or not. Gil leads Noor through a hallway, and Noor wonders where is he being taken because he just wants to go back to work. To his surprise, Gil brings him to a training arena for a mock duel between them. This shocks No, because he has not sparred hard with anyone since his days in training school. Gil picks up a wooden pole for practice, and he reveals that he is quite famous in the capital, and then asks Noor to choose his weapon as well. Noor thinks this is an excellent chance to learn from a veteran, and he chooses a regular wooden sword. He doesn't think he will be much of an opponent to Gil, but he is still planning to give it his all. Gil attacks first, thrusting his staff at No, who easily dodges his attacks. He can see how effortless and efficient Gil's moves are, which reveals how much he has trained. But for some reason, he appears to be moving very slow to No. He believes that Gil is just holding back his strength out of consideration for a noob like him. Noor calls a timeout and tells Gil that he doesn't need to hold back to such an extent. So Gil decides to get serious with him. He launches his attacks at a much higher intensity this time, but it is not fast enough to overwhelm No, who finds openings in Gil's defense every time he misses an attack. On the other hand, Gil is frustrated that his strikes are not connecting with No. So he decides to use a Lex attack where he changes his trajectory at the last moment, forcing Noor to jump, and then uses it as a chance to strike him down, just as he lands. However, despite all that, Noor is able to dodge his attack, and he asks Gil to increase the pace even more, because he is comfortable with the current intensity. Gil was already using his full abilities. So hearing those words hurt his ego. Noor also finally realizes that he might actually be stronger than Gil, but then suddenly, the elite guard uses his special move on No. The attack reaches dangerously close. But when the dust settles, Noor is not in front of Gil. He had dodged the attack and moved to the side. But after seeing the destructive power of Gil's attack, he immediately declares that he no longer wishes to fight. Noor leaves the palace with that. But his skill has caused an uproar among other knights who can't believe that he could dodge their captain's special attack. Some of them believe that Noor only survived because Gil was holding a practice spear. Otherwise, a genius like him could easily defeat anyone he wants to. Hearing those words take the depressed Gil down the memory lane. He was always talented with a spear and traveled all around the kingdom seeking powerful people and defeating them. There was no one who could even give him a proper challenge, and Gil got bored. He went to the capital and joined the knights so that he could fight monsters since they were stronger than humans. However, even monsters were no match for his strength and skill, and his boredom persisted. Then one day, as he was lazing around, the master of the sword school came to see him because he was the one who trained him in the early days. Gil ranted out about how boring it is to be so strong, and wished there were more people as strong as the master, so that he could have fun fighting them. The master only told him that someday someone who will surpass him will emerge among his students, and Gil hoped that the person makes his appearance while he is still alive, because that may be the only way to relieve his boredom now. As Gil thinks about the man who killed a minotaur with a single strike, his mind is full of conflicting thoughts. He knew from the first moment that No was an interesting person, but he couldn't sense anything remarkable about his strength. However, when they sparred, he found that No was much stronger than he looked when Nor told him to go even faster. He used his special attack on him that was even faster than the speed of sound, knowing full well that no human can survive it when Nor dodged the attack. Gil felt defeated, and to top that off, Nor ended the fight with that. Gil believes that he did so to not embarrass him in front of his troops, and before going, he told him that he was looking forward to their next meeting, which was No's way of telling him to get stronger. Now, Gil thinks that he has finally found someone who can make his life a bit more fun. On the other hand, Nor has no idea how highly Gil rates him. He used his body strengthening and feather step skill earlier to evade his ultimate attack at the last moment, and if he was only 1 moment late, he would have died. He thinks Gil adjusted the speed of his attack on purpose so that he could only barely dodge it, and he is grateful to him for showing him that he still needs a lot of training. The next day, Nor begins cleaning drains using the treasured sword he received from the king, and he is absolutely stunned by how good the sword performs. Later, he is sitting in the forest, because his job at the construction site was suspended because of the Minotaur incident. He wonders how can he kill time till the job is available again, and he also wants to put the huge sword to good use. He thinks that it may make a splendid oar, or a pizza shovel, or even a grill plate, but he lacks the resources to get other items needed to start those businesses. He tries using his fire magic and thinks that it is too weak to be any good for starting a barbecue. He hears footsteps behind him, and turns around to find Lin there, who has come looking for him specifically. Nor asks how can he help her, and Lin requests him to let her be his apprentice so that she can learn from him while serving him. She is eager to serve him with anything he wants, but Nor refuses, saying that he cannot teach her anything, and he is self-sufficient in everything Lin tries, offering him a monetary reward for his training. But Nor clearly tells her that he wants nothing. She keeps insisting that she will be helpful to him, and Nor fails to clearly get his point through to her, to prove that she is qualified to learn from him. Lin decides to show off her magic power. She creates icicle lances and shoots them towards herself, and then burns them off using a powerful fire spell. Next, she cuts down a huge tree with a small dagger, using another skill, and then uses a magic sword skill to blast a tree behind. No, she is confident that No will accept her as his apprentice with this display, but he still refuses to do so. He has now realized that Lin is rating him too high and wonders how can he convince her that he is nothing compared to her. He decides to show her his skill and creates a tiny fireball to prove to her that he is a loser, and Lin is shocked to see it. She begins walking home with that, and thinks about the tale of the talentless boy that all the teachers used to narrate that time. Lin used to think of just a cautionary tale, because she didn't think that any 12-year-old boy could endure the harsh training of all 6 schools for full term, when even seasoned warriors found it hard to stay there for so long. One day, the strongest magician who runs the magic school showed her his tiny fire skill, and then increased its size to show off his mastery. The magician said that it takes decades of practice to increase the size of the tiny flame skill. That is why, when Nor showed Lin his tiny fire today, she was left speechless because it was much larger than the strongest magician in the world. He told her that this is all he can manage, and that his skill in other branches is at the same level as well. Only Lin knew that the size of the small fire spoke volumes about Nor's ability, and she concluded that he was a peerless master in the other branches as well. Now, she is ashamed that she was proud of her high-level skills that she just learned recently. She thinks that despite being exponentially stronger than her, Nor never boasts about his power, and he does even the most mundane tasks to help others. She thinks that Nor's mind and character are as strong as his body, and that he cannot be fazed by anything. As the princess, she will have to lead the kingdom alongside her brother one day, and for that, she needs to be strong. She wants to learn how to become strong from Nor, and for that reason she once again reaches out to him. Just as he is coming out from a restaurant after having dinner, Lin tells him that she fully understands how immature and vain she was, and now she wants to learn from him even more. She believes that his strength will become the foundation of their kingdom's peace and prosperity, so she has accepted him as her master. However, Nor is deeply troubled by it and just wants to go home. If you liked this recap, then like this video and subscribe to my channel.